Alright guys, how are we doing today? So for our lecture for today, we are going to be discussing supply and demand and equilibrium. We're going to take a look at how supply and demand can determine a market's price and quantity, and describe how price moves within that market, and also how the shifts in supply and demand can affect that equilibrium price and quantity. Alright, so first we have our equilibrium point, which is basically equilibrium in a competitive market is when the quantity demanded of a good equals the quantity supplied. The price at which this takes place is the equilibrium price, aka market clearing price. It's a term you might see, probably not though. Every buyer finds a seller and vice versa. The quantity of the good bought and sold at that price is the equilibrium quantity. Now here we've got a nice little cartoon that kind of illustrates that point for us, where she says, yes, I know it's pricey, but I only got to sell one glass and I'm set for life here. And you see that it's for $1 million a glass. Now obviously no one's going to pay $1 million for a glass of lemonade. She's going to have to lower her price if she hopes to make any sales for that. Alright, now supply and demand and equilibrium is going to look like this, and we drew this in class. Alright, so this should be a review. We've got our price on the y-axis, quantity on the x-axis, and we've got our supply 1, demand 1, and this point right here in the middle is going to be our equilibrium point. Alright, so that's going to be our price 1, and we've got our Q1 right there. So this right here, that point is equilibrium. Alright, basically what that states is that this good or service, whatever it is, has to be sold at this price, and this much of that product will be sold right here. Now let's say that, let me erase this real quick. Alright. Alright, now let's say, that's a much better graph there. Alright, let's use the market for gasoline, because that's something that we always buy, or your parents always buy, unless you're driving around in a Tesla, in which case congratulations. Alright, so currently when I was driving into school, I saw, roughly speaking, the average price that I saw was probably around $2.60 per gallon. And I'm just going to make up a quantity. Let's say that at that price, actually we'll just leave that as Q1, okay? Because that could be any number. I'm not sure the exact number, so I won't even try and make it up. Alright, now let's say that we have a gas station. Let's say that the Kroger gas station that's right here, right next to the school, decides that they're going to try and increase their profit, and they're going to raise the price to $2.75. Remember, in this example, the equilibrium price, we're going to keep it at $2.60. So nothing has changed. They just decide that they are going to try and charge $2.75 for their gasoline. Alright. Well, when that happens, alright, the quantity demanded from Kroger right there is going to be less than the amount that they're trying to sell. Alright. So when price is above equilibrium, we'll just call it EQ, then there is a surplus. Alright, that's what we call an inefficiency in the marketplace. Now, basically they have too much gas, not enough people to buy it. So in order for Kroger to unload that gasoline, what are they going to have to do? Well, if you thought to yourself, because I'm not there to hear, they're going to have to lower their price to match the equilibrium point, then you are correct. They would, in effect, put their gasoline on sale. That's why gas stations that are like right next to each other or right across the street tend to have similar pricing for their gas. Rarely do you see it where one is like 10 or 12 cents higher. And if that's the case, no one's going to go there because they can just go literally right across the street and pay less money for their gas. Now, let's say that Kroger decides that they want to try and get a bunch of customers in, and they're going to lower the price of their gas to like $2.20 a gallon. Well, if that's the case, let me draw that across here just to show that. We are going to have less supply than demand in that case. All right, you see how that works? So essentially, we would say when price is below equilibrium, then there is a shortage. All right. That means that there's more demand than there is supply. Most concerts purposefully undercharge what they could get for their seats because they want to guarantee a sellout. They want to guarantee that there's more demand than supply because it isn't as fun to go to a concert if it's mostly full. Everyone wants to go to a concert that's completely sold out and everyone's having a good time. All right, so basically it's going to be important that you understand that. And so let's say this was Kroger's gas station. In order to not run out of gas, they're going to need to raise their price until they hit the equilibrium point. Yes, they will technically sell less quantity. Actually, they would sell more quantity because they're going to supply more at that higher price than they would there. And same thing happens here. It's essentially all about being as efficient as possible and guaranteeing that the producer makes their profit and the consumer gets the product that they need. Hold on one second before we move on. I'm just going to save this. Okay. Sorry about that little distraction there. All right. So now we are going to graph what happens when there's an increase in demand. So basically, we're just going to say that something happens that's going to cause the demand for a product to increase. All right, so we got our price there, quantity. Supply and demand. I'll get better at doing this as the year goes on. All right, so something happens that causes demand to increase. All right, so we're going to have an increase in demand. All right, now that's the thing that changed. All right, so an increase in demand is going to lead to an increase in quantity, as we saw right there. And it's also going to lead to an increase in the price as well. So we would say price increases. All right, and for the rest of this, I'm just going to draw an up arrow to demonstrate that. And quantity also will increase. All right, that's why it's very important for you right here to draw your dotted lines. All right, we talked about this in class, but it's still, I'm going to go back over it. Very important because that's what's going to help you to analyze and to see what's changing in the market here. All right, so if demand increases, it's going to lead to an increase in price, an increase in quantity, and we can just clearly see that right here because we drew our nice little dotted lines over to the side. All right, now if demand decreases, all right, we're going to go ahead and draw that. That's close, we'll go with it. There we go, price and quantity. Our supply and our demand. All right, so this one we have a decrease in demand, which is shown by a leftward shift in the demand curve. So we're going to start off at Q1, price 1. All right, and with that decrease in demand, we're now at Q2, and net price too. So if demand decreases for a product, that means that the price is going to decrease and quantity will also decrease. All right. Just remember back last week when I used the example of maybe it was fidget spinners. You know, currently because fidget spinners are not as popular as they once were a couple years ago, the makers of fidget spinners are definitely selling them for a lot less. The price has gone down by a lot, and also quantity sold has decreased. And that's something that kind of inherently makes sense. You know, demand, like I've said, is something that we as consumers get and understand because we buy stuff all the time. However, with supply, things are going to be a little different because we're not as used to supplying products. Most of us. Some of you guys, you know, might, you know, do something where you're babysitting or you're cutting grass or you're doing something in order to earn money by having a small business. But for the most part, most of us are just used to being consumers. All right, so let's go ahead and graph this. Remember, with supply, we're thinking about this from the perspective of a business owner or someone who supplies a good or service to be purchased. Alright, so we've got our price and quantity here. Supply 1, demand 1, got our equilibrium point, Q1, price 1. Alright, now when supply increases, that is going to cause our price to actually drop. And that makes sense. So think about, like, if there's more of a product that's available, then it becomes less expensive to purchase. Quantity, however, is going to increase. Alright, so price is going to decrease when there's an increase in supply, but quantity is going to go up. Alright, and again, just think about it from a logical perspective. Right? If there's some more of something available to purchase, that's going to lead to a drop in the price for that product, all things being the same. Alright, and lastly, we're going to draw a decrease in supply. So we're going to start off right there. Now when supply decreases, which looks like that on the graph, alright, price is going to go up while quantity is actually going to go down. Alright, quantity makes sense because there's less supply of something. The price going up, you know, think about it, it's more rare. There's not as much of it available to purchase, so that's what's going to cause that increase in price. Now, a couple of other things that you need to keep in mind. Sorry about that. About this, what you need to do is when you're given a problem with supply and demand, you need to analyze it and you need to say, okay, is this a shift in supply or demand? Step 1. Alright, in fact, let me go ahead and write this out here for you guys. Step 1. Is this supply or demand? Alright, so if I said input prices are decreasing in the market, that's a supply shift. Alright, well, first we analyze it's a supply shift. Step 2 is S or supply or demand going to increase or decrease? Alright, so that's step 2. So then you would analyze it. If we use the example of input prices going down, that's going to lead to an increase in supply, and so that means that there will be a shift right. However, if it's a decrease in something, then it would be a shift left, and you would draw it. All right, so that's what you have to think about as we're going through these problems here. All right, there's a couple of examples here that I'll put up here so you can pause it. I mentioned concerts earlier. All right, just look at how much fun these guys are having. I just had to point that out. And these guys are having the time of their life. All right. A few years ago, there was a decrease in the supply of bacon. Basically what happened was there was a drought that led to farmers not having enough food to feed their pigs. So there was a decrease in supply. Bacon prices skyrocketed, and people freaked out because it's bacon. And basically what happened was prices went up because of that, because there was less supply available. Because prices went up, fewer people consumed bacon, and that led to a decrease in demand, which brought prices back down. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day. See you all at the next class.